The theme I've chosen is the power of wings. Actually, during this year, we studied English literature in the time. I have noticed an element that was in the majority of poems we have studied, that's to say, the creators with wings. I'd like to discuss about, for examples, the dragon in Beowulf, the albatross in the rhyme of the ancient mariner, the dove in Blowing in the Wind, and finally the bird in Hope is the Thing. Following the timeline and stopping in Anglo-Saxon period, the first flying creature we have met is a dragon. We can find him in the poem Beowulf. The main character is an incredibly strong and brave hero, whose name is the title of the poem. He has defeated many monsters, such as Grendel and his mother, gaining the title of king, but in the end, this invincible hero is defeated by a dragon. The creature lived in a cave, looking after a cursed treasure, but one day slaves stole a cup, and when the dragon found out the loss of the item, he attacked a village. To protect his people, the 8-year-old king Beowulf fought against him with his bare hands. The winged animal was killed, but he poisoned the hero, biting him and causing his death. In this first case, the wings have a negative value. Actually, their possessor was the only living being able to end the glorious legend of Beowulf. So they represent the evil and the darkness, in other words, the death itself. These lines give us a description of the dragon. Inside the barrow, the dragon heard the hated voice of a man. It rushed out, breathing fire, spitting flames at Beowulf. They went over it, under it, around it, burning him and forcing him backwards. The blade penetrated the scales. The dragon roared in pain, but then the sword bent and broke. Furious, the dragon opened its mouth wide and bit deeply into Beowulf's neck. The creature is really evil and hates humans, exactly as a demon. His flames are devastating, and his scales break Beowulf's legendary sword. He bites the king, and nothing can save him. Now let's investigate about the symbol wings represented in this period. Science was not developed, and people invented legends to explain what happened around them. They noticed something really surprising: the wings. Actually, they saw birds flying while humans are not capable, and it was really curious. So, to explain these and other features too, such as fire or tabs, they created the legendary winged creatures, and the scariest and most dangerous one was the dragon. Going on in the timeline, in my opinion, the most important cultural movement in English literature is Romanticism. Once again, we can notice the presence of an important winged animal, just like the albatross in the rhyme of the ancient mariner. It's one of the main characters, and the story rotates around him. Actually, he represents nature, the purity itself, and the image of God. When he is alive, the history is peaceful and really quiet, but when he is suddenly killed by the mariner, everything changes. Let's see these extracts from part 1 and part 2. First of all, this is a ballad written by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. We have a quartet and assist it. When he says he had killed the albatross, there is a turning point. Actually, nature suddenly changes, become dangerous for the crew. We can notice some alliterations like from and fins, said and slay. In these two last words, there is also an assonance. I suppose the figure of birds was really important for the poet. Actually, he lived during the Industrial Revolution, when nature was really polluted, and wild animals, especially these kind of birds, were not commonly seen in urban areas. In this case, the albatross represents exactly what has happened with the revolution. Actually, in the past, humans and nature were really close to each other. In fact, the main source of money came from the land, and if there were bad events such as a flood or drought, people died. Suddenly, man started to control nature, destroying it. For this reason, humanity suffered, and it's still suffering, of health issues and other pollution-linked troubles like climate change. So humans have been punished exactly as the crew and the mariner. In the same poem, we can notice the presence of supernatural. That's why romantic poets are really important to me. They are original and innovative. Their imagination has no limits and their heads are crowned by wings. Romantic poets' minds fly everywhere, trying to overcome the barriers of the impossible. Reading their works, we feel a bit of nostalgia of the past, but at the same time, we get curious and we want to read more and more, trying to understand what they have invented. Now, there are other two poems I'd like to discuss about. Let's start with Hope is the Thing by Emily Dickinson. There are three quartets, rhyme scheme is not regular, and we can notice the repetitions of the words and that. As in the other Emily Dickinson's poems, the dashes are the main punctuation. There are many metaphors just like this line. And sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. Here we can clearly understand that hope is seen like a bird. Personally, I figure it like a white dove, as Bob Dylan did in his Blowing in the Wind. Let's see it. This is a 20th century ballad formed by three octaves written to protest against the Vietnam War. An element we can clearly notice is the repetition of the phrase how many. Let's analyze the lines in which the dove is presented. Yes, and how many seas must the white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? There are two alliterations. One is between many and must, and the other is sleeps and sand. According to my team, these two poems are really similar but at the same time totally different. In both cases, the birds are seen as the symbol of humans who face troubles, and that's why I think they are really similar. What makes them completely different is how the birds behave in facing these problems. Looking at Dickinson's poem, the bird is really brave and strong. It has just faced a terrible storm, but it hasn't been abashed or dismissed, being still warm and happy. According to my personal interpretation, humans have faced a lot of terrible problems in their history, but they have always been able to stand up after every fall, stronger than before. The period we're living in with this coronavirus situation is really sad, but we're being really smart and able to face our troubles without getting demolished, so Emily's prediction has become true. On the other hand, the white dove in Blowing in the Wind is tired. It has flied for too long and its only desire is to find peace in the sand. I think this means humans have rebelled, fought and suffered. They can no longer survive in these horrible conditions and they prefer dying than to crying and screaming for another useless day. I think one of the reasons we read about the high number of winged creatures in literature is because they fascinated poets. Actually, wings had never been on human body. For example, in the past we had a tail, but never wings. People are always subtracted from the things that aren't in their routine, and they want to understand and discover more about them. This year I've studied English literature for the first time, and it has put wings on my head, just like romantic poets. Actually, I felt several emotions and my imagination has traveled throughout the centuries. When I've read poems or phrases, I've understood the people's thoughts in the past. That's why I think literature gives you the amazing opportunity to discover how humans reacted to some situations you don't live in and to predict how they will behave in the future. Literature has helped me in understanding history, in understanding why powerful people behave in a bad or good way, like for example Queen Elizabeth, and why my present is exactly as I live it. Actually, a book, a poem, a line can inspire people and change their lives and the future itself. So, if I am an happy Italian girl, maybe I have to thank a poet that in the past inspired my ancestors. I can conclude saying that the power of wings and the power of literature itself are extraordinary.